Good evening, everybody. Nick B. Ponter here, author of Connor Jackson and the Memory Thieves. I'm not sure how many. There's one person live at the moment, so I'm afraid we're just going to have to wait here until a few people are on. We'll see, and then I'm going to get going. Whoever's there waiting, I hope you're well. Maybe it's mum and dad. I don't know. Hello, if it is. And today, two people are on now. Excellent, even better. If you have a YouTube channel, you can write in the comments. And if you haven't got a YouTube channel, you can't. So as you can see, I've written something there. So please feel free to ask questions as I go along. So I hope you're all doing well. It's 6 o'clock in the evening here in Germany. I don't know where you're from, whoever's watching. Obviously, I have to speak now until everybody goes on, until anybody else joins us, because this gets recorded and it sounds a bit silly when I go live and it's recorded and I'm just sitting here saying nothing. But it's 6 o'clock and you're on time and other people are waiting. So do you know what? I am going to get going. So Connor Jackson and the Memory Thieves. This lovely little story here is a humorous fantasy story. There are no swear words. There's nothing scary. There are no dragons. There are no witches. But there are friends. Connor, Vanessa, Ludwig and Basil. There's character development. How these four very different characters, two humans, a dog and a duck, end up working with each other. The story also combines our real world on the surface with a fantasy world below the ground. And I'm sure you must have asked yourselves questions. What do moles do? Why do they need so many molehills? Well, what the moles actually do is they store our memories in glass jars. Yes, nobody really dies. Everybody stays alive. We just don't know about it. Then they reprogram us and send us back with different assignments. But in this time below the ground, they're actually quite busy and they have special operations. And people can go on scavenging missions. They can go on different special operations missions. The moles actually do quite a lot below the ground, which we don't know. Pigeons, bird poo. There's a lot going on. Now, just to give you an update before other people join, I hope they join, just finished recording this as an audio. Just finished recording this as an audio book. It took me 3 months to do. So thank you very much, Pegasus and ACX and Audible, for giving me the opportunity for doing that. It's complete. I've uploaded it and I'm now waiting for Audible to come back, and it'll hopefully be on sale soon on Amazon, iTunes and the Audible website. So that's coming up soon. What am I going to do today? I've got 3 readings planned. Now, some of you, I don't know who's watching, but if you have listened to some of the readings before, I hope I don't repeat anything. There might be a little. It depends because I've done so many different readings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with a reading. And the first one is, let's meet some of the characters. And the characters we're going to meet now are Connor Jackson. Now, Connor Jackson is obviously the character of the book. We're going to meet his neighbour, Mr. Lawnsworthy, and his other neighbour, a child, Earl Pike. So, let's get going with the first reading. My desk is right next to my bed, and from my window, I have a beautiful view of the whole area, which also overlooks the street. The coloured autumn leaves on the trees are dancing in the crisp October sunlight and blustery wind. I can see my front garden, the neighbouring houses and back gardens directly to my right and left of numbers 2 and 4. Of the other houses, I can only see the front gardens. The Pike family lives next to me in number 2, Edith and Edward Pike and their child Earl. The Pikes recently had a greenhouse built in their garden, which had milky glass, so I had no idea what they were growing in there. To my right in number 4 is Mr. Lawnsworthy. Mr. Lawnsworthy lives up to his name, really. He must be around 70, and I have known him since I was a child. Mr. Lawnsworthy, as his name suggests, loves his lawn, probably more than anything else in his life. He spends endless hours on his hands and knees, crawling across every centimetre, pulling out anything which does not resemble a blade of grass. With a spirit level and a pair of scissors, he makes sure all of the grass is at exactly the same level. I always imagine that his grass represents hundreds of thousands of identical people who he has probably given names to. From spring to autumn, he cuts his lawn every 3 days, unless the weather stands in his way. He is endlessly adding some sort of concoctions to his grass to ensure it is healthy and the richest, darkest green you can imagine. It does look nice, really nice, and if he enjoys it, then that's just fine with me. Do you know that I've only ever spoken to him once in all of these years? And that was to ask him if he could look after the key to my house, just in case there was an emergency. He hung it on a hook in his hallway, and it's probably still there now. Since then, just a nod of the head in polite recognition, and that's it. Oh, and he also hates leaves, and therefore autumn is the worst time of the year for him. Leaves are not allowed to fall anywhere in his property. For the few weeks in the year when the leaves fall, Mr. Lawnsworthy is on permanent guard duty, armed with a metal stick with a sharp end and a bucket. He is always there from the first moment I look out of my bedroom window to when I close my curtains before going to sleep. There he is, running around in his garden, spiking any leaf which dares to enter his property. When it is dark, he even wears a powerful head torch to light up a few meters in front of him. It is quite funny to watch sometimes, especially on a windy day when he spikes some leaves, turns around to get some more, and then turns around again and screams in anguish as more leaves appear again where he has just cleaned. Mr. Lawnsworthy has never changed since my early childhood memories. He is still exactly the same, always wearing blue garden overalls and Wellington boots, and apart from looking older, he hasn't changed a bit. It certainly keeps him fit, because I have never seen him sick, or with a limp, or any sort of injury. No day would be the same without Mr. Lawnsworthy of number 4 Trout Lane. Come to think of it, I have never even seen anyone visit him, nor have I ever seen any family members or grandchildren. The only child I have ever seen in his garden is Earl, and the only reason I know Earl is because he was the first person ever to come up to me in the street and introduce himself. The people in Trout Lane are not the most talkative bunch. They are reserved, but polite and law-abiding people. You will not believe it, but we never really introduce ourselves to each other. Just a quick nod of the head is sufficient. It was a Saturday, and I had just left my house and walked along my small driveway to the pavement when suddenly, from behind a hedge, a small boy appeared on a bicycle. He screeched to a halt in front of me with his back wheel sliding in a cool braking stop. "Hello," he said, looking up at me. "My name's Earl. I am 7 years old, and I live in number 2. And who are you?" I was completely startled, not just by his sudden appearance, but his directness. We are very quiet in Trout Lane and not accustomed to such dramatic activities. I composed myself and with a short pause said, "Hello, Earl. Nice to meet you. My name is Mr. Jackson from number 3. "That's a strange name." Earl studied me, inspecting me with his large, round, inquisitive eyes. "What do you mean?" "Well, your name is Mr. Jackson from number 3, and I've never heard of a name like that." "No, my name is Mr. Jackson, and I live at number 3. "Oh, well, that's okay for a name, I suppose," said Earl. Thanks, very kind of you, Earl," I said, now smiling at the young boy. I don't know how long it lasted, but it seemed like an eternity. Earl on his bicycle, looking at me, and me just standing there, neither of us saying a word, just staring at each other, probably waiting for the other to say something. Then Earl made the first move. "What do you do, Mr. Jackson, from number 3? "What do you mean, Earl?" "Well, I mean, what do you do for a living?" he replied. Oh, okay, I'm a civil servant. Earl's eyes inspected me again. Wow, you're a servant. For who? No, Earl. I'm not a servant for anyone in particular. I work for the government, and people who work for the government are called civil servants. So you serve people with tea and biscuits and things like that? No, Earl. This was getting a little annoying now. I have never had any experience with children before, so I was not used to this line of questioning. I work in an office and deal with paperwork. I'm not really a servant as you imagine. We are probably called servants because we work for the government and therefore the people. Oh, said Earl, but I could see he wasn't convinced. You do look kind of ordinary, so I suppose that suits you. I didn't quite tell the truth to Earl that day. Well, kind of the truth, because I really do work for the government, and I really do deal with paperwork. The only problem is that I work in a special department, and I am not allowed to say what I do. Therefore, we are always told just to say that we are civil servants and work in a government office. I actually work in the government's information collection agency, which, as I am sure you can imagine, is rather secretive. This encounter with Earl was a little awkward, because no one had ever questioned me about what I do before. Thankfully, I could remember the training and came out with a standard answer. Can you imagine if I hadn't thought about it and just blurted out, I work for the government and we collect information about people and many other things? Not a good answer. So no, I didn't lie to Earl, but I didn't fully explain what I do. I was just careful with the truth, I would say. I wasn't quite sure if I should have been insulted about looking ordinary, or should I have just taken it as a compliment. I suppose looking ordinary is a good cover for my job. To be honest, I wouldn't describe myself as an outwardly exciting person. No, I am, in a way, quite ordinary. But I do possess a very analytical mind, and hence am very good at analysing information and making the right decision. I think long and hard about things, but more often than not, I draw the correct conclusions and act accordingly. That, I suppose, is one of the reasons why I have the job in the agency, and I am very good at it. I just love collecting information, and you never know what you might need. I certainly wouldn't consider myself a spiritual person, and certainly have no time for talking about things you cannot prove. No, I am a man of documents, photographs, and recorded voices. Yes, these things are my physical world, proven events that really happened. Just as quick as he arrived, he disappeared. He didn't say anything, just stood up on his pedals and cycled away as fast as he could. He then turned his head and shouted, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Jackson, from number 3. So that's the end of my first reading part. So Connor Jackson, Earl, and Mr. Lawnsworthy. Mr. Lawnsworthy plays an integral part of the book, as do other characters. So, because I'm here to do a little bit of a reading and to give you an insight of the book, I should now go on to the fantasy part, the funny fantasy. This is a little part now which is later in the book. Below the ground, they have special operations departments, and in the special operations department, they do scavenging. And they also implant themselves into other creatures on the surface. How do they do that? Well, they actually are turned into bird poo, and they splat on animals or people and integrate themselves into these. So, for example, a dog could take over a human. In this instance, which I'm just going to read, Connor Jackson is below the ground in the world of moles in the Special Operations Department, and he is being trained to be a dog. So let's go below the ground and see what's happening. I was sitting on a box waiting for my trainer to come. My dog trainer. Yes, I was chosen for training as a dog. Can you believe that? Vanessa was selected to be a cat, Basil a horse, and Ludwig a human. We were split up and taken to our respective training rooms, and that was where I was waiting when the door opened and in walked the most elegant dog I had ever seen. Hello, Connor. I am an Afghan hound, and my name is Duchess. Welcome to your training." "Thank you, Duchess. A pleasure to meet you," I stammered back. "What do you know about dogs, Connor?" I must admit, I have never owned a dog, so I don't know much. Rather nothing, to be frank. "Owned? Did you say owned?" said Duchess. "Well, this is the first key fact for you. You can't own a dog, and what's more, as you humans suppose, you cannot actually own an animal at all. You might be its master as a human, but you may never own it. If you're going on an operation as a dog, you need to study their characteristics and act exactly like they do. You certainly don't want to be given away or arouse suspicion, so you must pay attention and follow my lead." "Wouldn't it be easier to send a dog as a dog, and then there's no need to do this training?" I asked. "Of course, Connor, and we sometimes do that. But you have to remember the mission is the most important factor. If it means you going as a dog to complete a mission, then that is what you have to do. I understand so much that you have to go on a mission to retrieve an important article. A top secret mission. Well, you are the one who has the information, but you can't just go walking in as another human, can you? And we know because we've already tried. The 2 policemen guarding your house didn't fall for it and sent them packing. Therefore, you need to go in as something else, something which cannot be suspected. Therefore, it is better to train for the unexpected and be prepared for all eventualities. This is why we are called special operations. The more life forms you are trained in, the more versatile you are as an operative. Today, you will be trained as a dog, and next week maybe as something else. Our most highly trained operatives can pass off easily as over 10 different types of creature without raising any suspicion. Any questions? Sounds plausible to me, and I will of course do this. Dogs. What do I know about dogs? Well, generally, they live in houses and bark when the doorbell rings. They cannot open cans and therefore have to wait to be given food. Also, they have to be taken for walks, to go to the toilet, and if they are not well trained, they have to be kept on a lead. There we go. That's a good start, I think. Oh yes, one more thing. They believe that doors open magically if they just stare at them long enough. Oh dear, there's a lot more to the life of a dog. Anything else you might know? Oh yes, I forgot. They like to steal food and pretend it wasn't them. Well, Connor, I can see you have a lot to learn, so let's start with the basics. How do dogs greet each other? I'm not certain about that, but I'm sure you're going to tell me. Dogs greet each other by sniffing their rear ends. That's also how they identify. I felt disgusted just about the thought of it. Lovely. I'll just pretend to be a very shy dog. Let's move on to the next topic, please. Duchess looked at me sternly. Oh no, Connor. You will have to practice it, or you are not going anywhere. We will try it out in a few minutes' time, along with some other basics. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm not sniffing your rear end. No offense, Duchess, but no. No offense taken, but you will have to do it if you want to go on a special mission. Think yourself lucky. If I were a cat, you would have to learn to stand on a ridiculously narrow things, high above the ground. The thought even makes me shudder. And then there is this fur-licking part and puking it back out after. Blah. No, that is disgusting, Connor. Think yourself lucky. I looked at Duchess, and with a judder of my back, I really don't think I'm going to enjoy this. Don't worry, we can leave the sniffing to later. Let me explain some very basic facts. Firstly, how to approach another dog when you are greeting. You first move around in an arc, then approach the rear and sniff. Bark to show protection, woof. For example, when the doorbell rings or a stranger approaches. If you want to show happiness, then simply wag your tail. Dig or chew if you are bored. Stick your tail between your legs if you are frightened, and show your teeth to express anger. Lying on your back will show that you feel secure and relaxed in your environment. What about if I'm hungry or need to go to the toilet? I can't speak, so I must be able to do something. Good question. Pace back and forth in front of where you want to eat to show hunger, or in front of a door to show you want to go out. My advice is always to act as passively as possible and don't overact your role. You will be taking over the function of another dog, and you will never be able to copy its behavior. Best thing to do is to be as quiet as possible, do the basics, and learn from your environment so you can complete your mission. But I can't train here, Duchess. I am a human and not a dog. You are correct, and that is your biggest challenge. But nobody said that special ops was easy. My advice is to learn as much as you can here so you can implement it when you first go out. We will make it easy for you and choose a farm dog for your first training. They usually spend most of their time outside independently and have little contact with humans, unlike a dog in someone's house. To replicate that behavior requires a very advanced level, Connor. Come on, we can do some basics to get going. Go over there to the box and put on the false ears and tail so we can practice. Although I felt really stupid, I did what Duchess asked me to do. I found the pair of headphones with cardboard dog ears fixed onto them and put them on. Then I slung the belt with a tail around my hips. Great, Connor, almost there. Now down on all fours and let's practice. I wasn't enthralled about the prospect of this, but what choice did I have? I went down on all fours and approached Duchess head on, but then moved to the right and passed her in an arc fashion. With a cringed face, I approached her rear end and sniffed, but then withdrew as quickly as I could. Too quick, Connor. You must linger and sniff more intensively. I'm sure you've seen dogs do it before. Let's go again, Duchess commanded very patiently. With an air of defeat, I went back to my starting place and did exactly what Duchess asked me. Well done, Connor. That's it. Not difficult, is it? We then played through some different scenarios, such as requesting food, indicating to go to the toilet, barking for protection, and so on. By the end of the day, I had learned the basic dog behavior and was probably just able to pass off as a very passive farm dog, hoping I could avoid meeting any other dogs so I would be spared the initial greeting ritual. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Connor Jackson being trained to go as a dog. Now, his other friends, they also are being trained to be other things. Vanessa, a cat. Vanessa is a human, by the way, Vanessa Forsyth Twike, daughter of the Mayoress Felicity Forsyth Twike. These lovely names in my book. Then there is also Basil. He's a duck. Basil is trained to go as a horse. And Ludwig is the dog. And Ludwig was going back to be trained as a human, something he was extremely happy about. So we're now going to go into a funny part of the book. And this is their training to be bird poo. Yep, bird poo. This is how they infiltrate themselves into other beings. They have to land on another being as bird poo. So I'm going to go straight into this little part and see if you enjoy it. Wow, that was great, said Ludwig. Being a human sounds like so much fun. I can eat when I want, whenever I want, go to the toilet by myself. In fact, I can decide about everything. Fantastic. Much better than being a dog, I think. Being a human is not all that it is cracked up to be, I said. You have to go to work every day, cook your own food, do the cleaning by yourself, and pay tax to the government, of course. Tax? What's that? Best you don't busy yourself with that, Ludwig. Just enjoy yourself. Well, I intend to make the most of it and do all of the things I couldn't do before. And you are going as a dog, Connor. Yes, and I must admit I am not really looking forward to it. And neither am I, piped in a moody-looking Vanessa. Oh, not a surprise there, added Basil sarcastically. I have to go as a cat and catch mice at night time and learn how to fight. Imagine that, said Vanessa. Actually, I find that hard to imagine, I said, smiling at her. My name is Flight Sergeant Splat. A mole in a blue Air Force uniform shouted at us as he entered the room. You must all pay special attention as this is the most complicated part of the mission. If you fail, you have to come back and try again, and that, ladies and gentlemen, takes time and effort. something we haven't got a lot of. I need you to get it right the first time. Now, follow me over here." The flight sergeant led us to a wooden frame with 4 plastic bottles strung underneath. The bottles were hung upside down, with their necks facing down, pointing through holes in a wooden platform for stability, and held in position with garden twine. The bottle bases were cut open, and the frame itself was suspended with a rope from the ceiling, so that the whole contraption swung freely above the floor. "Do we have to get into these?" asked Basil. "Yes, you do, but not in the form you are now. You will be turned into a thick white fluid, and then filled into bottles. This way, you can be dropped above your target by our bombing birds." My face had already turned white, but from fear. "Will we be aware what is going on?" "Yes, you will be fully aware of everything and communicate with the mice until the release point." "Mice? Did you say mice?" asked Vanessa. "Yes, the mice are the direction finders and stand on the platform next to the bottles. They take aim and then release you. All you have to do is stretch out your arms and legs and control the direction of your drop." "You mean like parachuting?" I asked. "Correct, but without a parachute. The fluid is very thick, and you are inside it in a miniature form. When you stretch out your arms and legs, you will change the shape of the bomb and thus control your fall. Your job is to steer directly onto the target." "How the hell can we practice that here?" asked Vanessa, with a questioning expression on her face. "I was just coming to that. Come over here to my flip chart, and I will teach you how to steer." The flight sergeant then showed us using pictures on the flip chart and explained how we could control our descent. It sounded easy in theory, but I was sure it would be much more difficult in practice. So, just to recap, push out your arms and legs in a star shape, and you will stretch the fluid and slow down your descent. Tilt to the right, and you will fly to the right. The same applies to the left. Move your weight to the right, and you will fly to the right. The same applies to the left. Move your weight forward, and you will dive and increase your speed. Got it? I suppose so. When will we try it out? I was not so convinced that we had enough training. Right now. Come this way, please. Follow me to the morphing machine. We followed the flight sergeant out of the room and along a corridor to a solid wooden door with a sign above it, "Morphing," where we found Mr. Tinker waiting for us, standing next to a strange contraption with lots of different cables coming out of it. "I hope you've all listened carefully," said Mr. Tinker, and stared at him with big eyes. "Please don't worry, this is completely safe and won't hurt, I promise. All you have to do is jump into this big canister and wait for the process to begin. It only takes a minute and you will be awake and aware of everything," he said. "Exactly what process?" asked Vanessa, looking puzzled. "A miniaturizing fluid will be poured in, the canister sealed, and then shaken with you in it. You will then come out as a very thick fluid resembling bird poo. We've used this thousands of times and it works just fine. I will program the machine so that your mixture will only work for 2 days, so you must return before that time is over. For other, more sophisticated operations, I can program it for longer periods of time. Trust me, I've done this loads of times." "You are going to turn me into bird poo?" Vanessa was shocked. "This is getting worse as the day goes by. What next?" "Yep," replied Mr. Tinker simply. "Right, who's first?" I put my hand up, climbed up a ladder to the top of the canister, and lowered myself inside. I looked up and saw a funnel, a lever, and a mole grinning down at me. The canister was made of clear plastic, so I could see the nervous faces outside, and they could quite easily see the fear on my face. Vanessa simply made the thumbs up sign to me, but I didn't return her gesture. Mr. Tinker nodded to the mole above me, who immediately pulled the lever to release a thick white fluid, which splattered right on top of me and filled up the entire canister. I could just about make out the shapes of the others through the thick liquid. It was a strange sensation, sitting in thick goo and still being able to breathe. My motions were naturally slower, but I regained all of my senses. Mr. Tinker and the mole put the lid on and screwed it shut. "Stand back, please," I could hear him say. And that is the start of Connor Jackson going away on a bombing mission. Now, I'm coming towards the end of the reading because I think 30 minutes is usually enough. And I've read quite a lot, and you've met some of the characters. You've experienced some of the humorous parts of the book and what really goes on below the ground. Yes, lots of people don't know that. But I'm going to finish with a very, very short reading, which seems to be the most popular reading. I've done lots of readings, and people love this part. I'm now going to do 2 women's voices. Yes, and if you've heard before, I think you might guess. I'm going to do a very short reading of Felicity Forsyth Twike, who is the mayoress in the Molehamptons and the owner of the food factory, and Vanessa's mother, and Jemima Kingston, who is Connor's boss. So get ready for 2 women's voices. "Oh, just how divine," squawked Felicity Forsyth Twike. "Since when have you had this little darling?" she added in a high-pitched voice. "Oh, what's its name?" "This, Felicity, is Cromwell," replied Jemima Kingston. "I've only had him since last week. It was rather strange, you know. The doorbell rang on Thursday last week, and I found Cromwell just sitting on my doorstep, looking up at me. Nobody else was there, and also there was no note, just a dog collar with the name Cromwell on it." "Really?" Felicity Forsyth Twike replied, slowly and somehow sheepishly, but didn't look surprised when she said it. She coughed, composed herself, and carried on. "One just doesn't abandon a dog on one's doorstep. Surely someone from that rabble at Lower Molehampton," she added haughtily. "We from Upper Molehampton just wouldn't do anything like that. How could anyone? He's just so delightful. I love dogs. Our family has always had dogs. I'm sure you know it is a toy fox terrier," she said with the aloof authority of a schoolmistress. "In fact, I just love all animals." "Have you got anything to do with Felicity? You reacted as though you had a hand in it." "Oh, Jemima, shame on you to utter such a thing. Of course not." "And anyway, Felicity, it's a Chihuahua," retorted Jemima smugly. "Oh, I knew that. You know, they are very similar." Felicity Forsyth Twike now sounded a little defensive. Jemima looked at her with delight. "And what's more, he's so cute I can carry him in my handbag and even take him to work." "Oh, Jemima, dear, why the devil would you want to take him to that dreadful, ghastly place? It's civil servants." "Darling Felicity, I am the manager of this place. Believe me, it is not all that dreadful and ghastly." "Oh, so the rumours are true then? It's more than just a government office." "Ah, Felicity, I wish you would stop listening to rumours. All we do is routine office work, nothing sinister, as a lot of people imagine," Jemima said abruptly. "And how is your business going, darling?" Jemima was eager to change this unpleasant subject rather quickly. "Animal lover, you said?" "Oh, absolutely. You know, I love animals. This meat industry is good for my pocket, and at least the animals have a purpose in their lives," Felicity added cruelly. "And what purpose may that be exactly?" said Jemima urgently, wanting to know. Felicity frowned and looked serious. "To make us happy, of course. Summer barbecues, followed by the fattening up for Christmas. Peak time, Jemima dear. People just want to eat meat, more and more of it these days, and so they should. Eat and don't ask is my motto." So, ladies and gentlemen, that's coming now to the end of my reading. I think that's enough for today. Should you be interested in buying this lovely book, Connor Jackson and the Memory Thieves, the publisher is Pegasus. So thank you very much, Pegasus, for giving me this opportunity for publishing. And if you're watching, hello, Rudita. Where can you buy the book? Well, you just need to go onto the internet and do a Google search for Connor Jackson and the Memory Thieves, and you'll find 3 or 4 pages. You can buy it in paperback directly from Pegasus's website or from Amazon or any leading bookshop. There's a Kindle version you can download immediately. And hopefully in the next weeks, the Audible version, the audiobook version, will also be there. So everybody who has just watched me live, or anybody who watches this video afterwards, I hope you enjoyed my little reading. There's a few more on my YouTube website. If you want any more information, just go to my website, www.nickponter.com, and you will find lots of information about my book. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you have a nice evening. Goodbye. Unless there's any questions, and I'll stay here. Very enjoyable. Thank you very much. From New York, I believe. So have a nice day in New York, a little bit earlier than we are here. If there are any questions, please, if you've got a YouTube channel, please just fire it away here into the chat, and I'll sit here for a little bit. Mum and Dad, if you're there, hope you enjoyed it. There'll be more coming soon, maybe once a month, a reading. Any questions, anybody? Anybody who's out there? Just type them in. If not, I wish you all a lovely, lovely evening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.